Hello and welcome to the Storytelling with Puck podcast. We will, as always, start with a story.
So my story is very timely. Today is obviously the first year of the anniversary of being in lockdown. And my lockdown story has been one hell of a story, one hell of a journey, really. And today I'm excitedly and nervously waiting for Amazon to tell me that my book has been published. I've been trying to do it for the last 3 days, and I've been getting emails saying, you need to tweak this and you need to tweak that. But I'm really hopeful and positive that maybe during this podcast, it might come through and tell me we've gone live. And it makes you think about what that last year has all been about, really, I think. Mine's quite a long story. It started from when I was a little girl. I don't have a lot of memories from them, but I had some quite traumatic experiences quite young. My dad died when I was 16. And then I was in quite an abusive relationship. And I've been sort of going from one job to another until I got really poorly. And then I started my own business, and I made my son something which called a cuddle bed, and that helped him sleep. And I didn't do that as a business. I think I was on sick at the time. Yeah, I was, for a year on my nursing job. And I just taught myself to sew because I researched some things on the internet to try and find him something to help him, because he'd nested, which means he puts everything in his bed to try and help him sleep and comfort himself.
Okay.
So I came up with this bed, and somewhere along the line, it turned into a business. I think it found me, to be honest, Steph. I did think it just sort of happened, and it took off from there, really.
Okay, brilliant. A very condensed version there, Chrissie, which we'll dig into a lot more. But before we do, now might be a good time to remind anyone who hasn't listened before or who has forgotten. My name is Stefano. I run Puck Creations, and I am the regular host of this podcast. If the title Storytelling with Puck hasn't given it away, this podcast is all about stories like the one we're about to dig into more with Chrissie. So we'll share stories, chat about stories, and see how stories fit in with the business world too. Of course, we couldn't do that without our wonderful guests. And this week, you've heard her first name. We have the inspirational Chrissie Lowery. Chrissie, I'm really interested in exploring your story further. You first shared the longer version for this year's Storytelling with Puck initiative. And I remember you talking about at the time, and you mentioned it just now, that your dad died when you were 16. My mum also passed away when I was 18, and it's a very young age to lose a parent. What kind of impact did that have on you?
I think it made me struggle, to be honest, with relationships in any form. I think I sort of then protected myself, so to speak. That sounds a bit weird, but like, if I'm protecting myself and not getting too involved and too close, then I can't lose that person, I think, in the back of my mind somewhere, because I lost 3 people in 3 years that from when I was 16, all very close people in my family. And I think it did a bit of a number on me, really.
I can imagine it would, yeah. It's definitely not an easy thing to go through, especially, as you say, 3 people in 3 years. That's a very short period of time. And from there, I know you kind of jumped a little bit to you when you had your son, and then you created the idea of a cuddle bed. But maybe you can guide us through what happened in between. Where did life take you?
So we go back to when I was a teenager. The last person that died was my nana, and she was the real close person in my life. And that was on my 18th birthday. And at that time, I was living in a mother and baby's home, because I'd had a child really very young to an older person, and that was the abusive relationship. So my life was all over the place right back then. I then found a job in a garage, and I started being a mechanic. And my dad was a mechanic, so that made me feel close to him in a weird way. And then I seemed to have got myself together for my 20s. My 20s, as I wrote in my story, was a really good time. I emigrated to New Zealand. I found that I liked to work in the special needs service, and I joined the special education needs service over in New Zealand. I lived with a wicket keeper over there. He was a professional wicket keeper.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we still keep in touch. So that was it. That was an incredible time, and I absolutely loved it. I came back after a year. I bought my first house. I went back to college and I got a diploma, and then I got a really good job in a residential autistic home as a manager there. And I did that with 2 homes, and then I became aware of, I think it was a lady who was like an assessor, said, "Oh, I think you're wasted here. You should do your nurse training." I was like, "Oh."
Suddenly it hit.
Yeah, I thought, even though I love the job, I thought, I think there's something more I can do. So I became a mental health nurse specialist. And I did that for, I think, 15 years. And in that time, I had 3 children. I had twins, and they came 3 months early, and they were very sick, and I was very sick.
Okay.
And that's probably why Zach has autism. So if you look back through my life, it's been preparing me for I have 2 sons with extra needs. I had the jobs and I had all the training, and it's very strange, and sort of pushed me into sort of being able to handle it. And that's probably when I started first, I reckon, around that time. It was a very highly stressful time, obviously. And then I started getting diagnosed with things, which brings me up to my 40s.
When you say you were being diagnosed with things, just for some of our listeners who don't know you, and if you don't mind talking about this, what kind of things were you being diagnosed with? Mental health, physical health, or what specifically was it?
So these are all physical health issues. I've got something called pernicious anemia, which is I can't keep hold of B12 within my body, and if that goes down to a certain, you can't survive without it, to be fair. And they found it quite low when I was sort of hallucinating all different colours. I couldn't walk, couldn't speak, completely lost my memory. I lost my time. It was a really scary time. And then I went on to get arthritis, lots of conditions with pain and fibromyalgia. And the last, I've got a couple of spinal issues. Okay. And then I was diagnosed with heart disease in lockdown last year, first lockdown.
Oh, really? That's very recent. Again, if you don't want to talk about this, by the way, you can tell me at any time.
I'm happy to talk about it. Okay. It's fine.
But so you were diagnosed with heart disease last year, and obviously all of these other diagnoses with it as well. How does it make you feel when you get these diagnoses? I think this is maybe far too broad of a question, but
I think the first couple, which was a few things, small little things to start with, and the fibromyalgia and the I've got like a malabsorption thing going on. I think that was quite a relief, to be honest, because I'd been ill for such a long time. No one knew what was wrong with me. I think the first thing I was told is that I've got cancer, and I obviously didn't, by the doctors. And it'd just been going on for like 4 or 5 years. So I was relieved. I was like, I knew, you obviously think you don't want to be ill.
No, but you knew what it was, and then you had the potential to try and do something about it, right? Is that...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I also think things happen for a reason, because my youngest son was bullied really badly this one year, and he ended up in hospital with a head injury at the same time that my eldest son, who's got the autism, was being treated really badly by his school.
Oh, okay.
And he was classed as a naughty child, and obviously had autism. And it was put on permanent exclusion. And I homeschooled them for 6 months. I took out my other daughter, who's his twin, and I homeschooled him for 6 months. I found an absolutely amazing school. And then my youngest son started developing issues and could only manage school for a very short amount of time every day. Couldn't have done that if I was a nurse. If I was still doing my nursing job, I just couldn't have been there for them. So I think looking back, it was horrendous at the time, but I think it was happened for a reason because I was there and present for them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Being a nurse is possibly one of the most challenging jobs in the world. And so, yeah, if you were trying to do that at the same time as looking after children who had, I like the word you used earlier, by the way, extra needs. I like that terminology. So yeah, if you're having children who have extra needs, that would have probably been even more difficult. So as you say, this all happened kind of concurrently. It all happened. You were getting diagnosed with things that weren't cancer, which was a slight relief, but was still very serious. You were then having the challenges with your kids, and then you say this came just before leading up to your 40s, and maybe we can take it from there if we go chronologically.
Yeah, that was in my beginning of my 40s, and I've got to say the first couple of years is a complete blur to me now. I do use Facebook memories. I love Facebook memories popping up. And I was like, oh, yeah. I can't remember that my children, my youngest three, I've got 5, but my youngest 3, their early years are really sketchy, which is quite sad, really. And then it was all about the business and setting it up. And I joined an enterprise scheme with the government, and I had a mentor called Adrian, and he was amazing, and he really helped me. And then I started getting some awards, and I started being in the paper, Brilliant. On Forbes, in TV, on the radio, and it just sort of snowballed. It was just incredible, really. It was a brilliant ride, for sure.
And so all of this momentum and all of this joy around the product that you were making, was it because of the design of the product? Was it something that people instantly said, oh, we have been missing this and we need it? What made the connection to be able to get to Forbes and to be able to get on TV and win awards, etc.?
I think it's 2 things. I think that the product is unique and it helps, and I also think it's my story. Mm-hmm. I think I started about a year or so after I sort of set it up properly. I think I started thinking, I need to be visible, I need to start talking. And the one thing that my illnesses did to me, it gave me confidence. It was just really weird, because before I wasn't very confident. There's no way I'd do this with you. Okay. I wouldn't talk to anybody. I was really shy. I used to blush. Even as a nurse, I didn't like the nursing handovers and the ward rounds and all that. I didn't like it. It wasn't the bit I liked. So I think that really helped me. And I started going live. And one of my lives, which actually ended up in Forbes, got seen by thousands and thousands of people. People like the story. I think people like the story that I've had difficulties and got through them, and I managed them. I think it's a feel-good thing, and maybe a bit inspirational, and I find a lot of other people like me.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. So you'd come through something and it was a genuine struggle. I don't think anybody could possibly deny that. But you fought through and you came out on the other side. So people saw that. And as you say, it gave you an injection of confidence, which I can understand that people might find a bit strange. The idea that you've suddenly been diagnosed with all of these.
12 I've got, 12 now.
Wow. And that gave you confidence. Why do you think it was? Was it something to do with, well, look, this is all happening, I might as well just get on with it type of mentality? Or what do you think made you suddenly gain more confidence and be able to do things like the Facebook Lives and to be able to...
I think it really has something to do with the illnesses, or one of the illnesses, whether it's fibro or I'm not sure. But it just, I don't know. It's a difficult question, that is, because I went through a very big change of not being able to have conversations to be able to do this. I've been on TV, it's just, there's no way. I think it took something in my brain. It switched something. And I do think that's one of the illnesses more than developing as a person, if that makes sense.
It does. I'd be interested to know if there's any research into some of the illnesses and what they could potentially do and how they could change your mindset if that's the case.
Maybe it may be not. It may be that I just thought to myself subconsciously that what's the worst can happen? I've been through all this stuff. I want to share. I don't know. I just It's something I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about, but it's a huge difference. The difference from me as a nurse to as I am now is massive.
And so, for people who don't know, a big part of that difference and a big part of that confidence is that now you actually run your own radio show on Solihull Radio, and maybe you can give a bit of a shout out to that. I know it's not on air right now.
Hopefully in a few weeks we'll be back.
Fingers.
It's still going. So Solihull Radio is still going. You can still listen to the shows, but mine, which airs on a Tuesday, is on hold because I can't travel because of the restrictions, but they are lifting next month. So
Brilliant. So you'll be able to get back and to have a wonderful conversation with all of your listeners again, which is something we'll all look forward to.
Yeah, it's obviously about crafters. It's craft to be kind, isn't it? So
that's what I was about to move on to next. So Craft to be Kind is your group that you run on Facebook, and it's more than that. It's a community of
community. So I suppose, what we're talking, 3 years ago. Well, no, before that, when I first started, I had my own lockdown, if you like. So the first year of when I was ill, I didn't really leave the house. I was too poorly. I was on the sofa all the time, and I found the internet at that time. It was the only sort of contact I had with the outside world. And I found a lot of other crafters, and so many crafters have illnesses that I've got.
Okay.
So I found people that were like me. And I started like a networking group, and I started running things. And I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. And then I started my own, what to call it really. It was a selling platform, but it still is a selling platform. Mm-hmm. But it was a community surrounding that before, if that makes sense. It's difficult to explain it. So a community of people that come together and share and help each other.
Is this called Artisan? Is that what we're talking about at the moment?
Yeah.
Okay, so from what I understand of Artisan, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but as you say, it's a platform a little bit like maybe something like Etsy, but actually it's a bit deeper than Etsy in relation to something I read, I think on your LinkedIn profile, the way that you described it was that it's a place where people can share their stories and therefore connect with people on a bit of a deeper level, which is what we're all about at Puck Creations, and what Storytelling with Puck is all about too.
Yeah.
How do you think people sharing those stories, do you think it does make a difference? Do you think they are able to build stronger relationships with customers? How does it work?
Absolutely. So it's all about getting seen, exactly where you come from as well. So it's about sharing your stories, going live, connecting with your audience, and also having each other to support each other. So we can lift each other up. If anyone's got an issue, we can talk to each other. We're all very close, and we all do it through Messenger and Facebook and social media. So I sort of created a really fabulous community before the radio show. When the radio show, I have other groups, but I don't run them. A part of my team run them. I've never had my own one. So I decided, I was given the name Craft to be Kind by the owner of the radio station. I thought, you know what, I'm going to have my own group and see what happens with it. And it's been really lovely. I absolutely love the group. It's really cool.
And so within the group, what kind of stuff do you do on a daily basis? I know you mentioned lives. What else do you do? How do you get people involved?
So we get people to share what they've been making, if they need any help. I've started the end of last year doing some training. So if people want to know about, I don't know, for example, Canva or social media, because when you start, I mean, I was a nurse. I had no clue about business whatsoever. So I did a lot of work to find out what to do. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to list, how to market, how to get yourself out in the paper, all these sort of things. So I started helping and sharing like that. And that's what I've brought into Craft to be Kind.
That's brilliant. And so I'm a member of Craft to be Kind. You kindly suggested that storytelling was a craft that was allowed in, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely, it's creative. It's a creative.
And I love the group, and something that you've done recently for the Storytelling with Puck initiative was you helped us greatly, and we can't thank you enough, by gathering stories from all of the members of your group. And something you mentioned during this conversation was that a lot of the members of your group have also been through quite a lot, and a lot of the crafters have actually some quite shocking and also lovely, incredible stories to tell. What is it you think that makes people who have been through such a difficult challenge decide to use the world of crafting and go into the crafting world and the crafting business?
Yeah, I think it helps. Do you know what? Crafting really helps focus your mind. It not only gets you through your really bad days, it helps you can get through pain. It helps you find other people the same as you. It gives you distraction, and it makes you feel, sounds a bit strange again, but it makes you feel like worthwhile. You're doing something worthwhile. You're doing something to contribute to society, because I'd say we're called spooners. So I'd say a lot of the spooners have had to give up their job at some time throughout their journey. Right. So it makes you feel like you're actually got a purpose.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And with a lot of the stories that I read too, you all have very different types of crafts. So yes, you're all crafting, but you're doing very different things.
Yeah.
And something that I noticed about each one was, although you have come from going through challenges, they've all been very different challenges. And those challenges have then created a genuine need, something which they realized that, hang on a minute, this is missing from somebody's life. This is missing from my life or my child's life or a friend's life. And then that's developed into, actually, I can do something about this. I have the skill, or I can learn the skill, and I can do this because I also have some more time, because potentially I've lost the job, etc. And so I have time to focus and to learn something new. And that is quite clear in all of the stories that came through, which I thought was amazing. But having those stories and having that genuine need, do you think that then is one of the reasons that these crafting businesses are actually a success? Because they came from somewhere where it wasn't just made because somebody thought, you know what, I'd like some money, I'm going to start a business. It was made because they wanted to fix something.
A lot of crafters will start with the thing that they need to solve a problem in their own life, like I did.
Yeah.
That's usually where they start. They're usually like, oh, well, I could do that. I could make something to help keep your mug warm, for example. You know, there's the people who crochet the mug warmers. Yeah. Yes. And make a bed to help someone to sleep. And that's how it starts. And then, like I say, you start surrounding yourself with other people that have been in your position, and you help. And you realise, actually, this is something I really want to do. I always say it found me, because I've never crafted. I wouldn't have put myself as a crafter years ago. I was always creative, like to draw. I've never sewn in my life up until when I started, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it does find you. I think most crafters will say that. It fills a gap to start with, I think.
And then it becomes something more from there.
Becomes an obsession. It does.
And so something you mentioned there is that you were always creative and you were able to draw, and I know you can write. I've seen some of your writing, and I also know that you've released. How many books do you have, actually?
This would be my second today. Fingers crossed, it'd be my second.
So let's tell the audience listening what today is. Today is the launch of.
It's the launch of a book called Crafting in a Crisis. It's called the Lockdown Edition. And it all started because we were in lockdown. And that was a huge thing for crafters, as it was for everybody in the world. And I had to give up making for a few months because everything shut down. Mm-hmm. And I got involved in a scrub. The right word is a scrub organization. I don't know, but I saw something on Facebook in my area that said we're looking for sewers that could help us make some scrubs and some masks and some bags. I've never made one, and I was like, I need something to do, because the news was absolutely driving me insane. I was overly thinking, getting worried, like everybody was. And I think this was April. So I contacted the lady who was organising it, and I ended up taking over the operation. So I was the operation manager, and I got 550 sewers, and I got the fabric in. We found someone to electrically cut it. We had a team, people on admin, people cutting up the fabrics, people all putting the packs together. Then I had a team of motorcyclists who would then take it out, because Gloucestershire is a big area, out all to the different sewers everywhere, and then they'd bring them back ready, and then we'd supply the hospitals. It was crazy, and we set that up in a very short amount of time.
Incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. And then the end of last year, it was brilliant, actually. Looking back on it, it was a crazy time. But looking back on it, I'm really proud of what we all achieved.
You should be.
And I ended up getting a Lockdown Hero Award and putting on the honours list by the council.
Oh, wow.
And that was in the paper. So that was one of my proudest moments.
Oh, congratulations. That's superb.
I didn't write that. In my story with yours. I didn't write the last sort of the beginning of my 50s, if you like.
Yeah. That's amazing. And I can see as well, when you talk about what you did and you talk about bringing the community together and supporting so many people, I can see, unfortunately this isn't on film, it's only on air, but hopefully people can hear it too, the joy in your voice when you are explaining what you did and how you were able to help people. And
I think the nurse came back. That sounds obviously a bit weird as well, but obviously my nurse part of me are gone, and I still want to help and still want to care and still help people, and I just felt like I was doing that. Brilliant.
It's incredible. And so that's your lockdown story, and now the book that is being launched today,
hopefully
hopefully, all being well. That came from the idea that you wanted to share your lockdown story and decided to go back to the Craft to Be Kind group and see what other people's stories were and see if they would like to share what happened to them and how they coped, etc. as well. And so, what kind of stories did you have?
Oh gosh, we have so many. I think it's 22 of us. We have stories all about how lockdown affected the businesses, how they may have had to shut, or how maybe they did really, really well. Cuddlebeds had an amazing year, to be honest. Okay. And it's just really good that we've had people collaborate within that year. I started something called a Mums in Business group in August, September, when things started opening up and going back to normal. And a few of those ladies I've met within that group wrote about their story. It's just loads. There's just quite a lot of feelings and what happened to them. And I think it's quite an inspirational read. And then the inspirational read finishes with your poem, which is awesome, right in the middle.
Thank you.
And then the second half of the book is my contribution to help people if they want to set up businesses or do things that are difficult and through the crisis,
That sounds brilliant. Once it is released, where can people find it?
Amazon.
Okay.
It should be on Amazon today. It better be. I'm going to cry. No, I won't.
Well, as soon as it is out, as soon as it is available for release, we will make sure that we add it to the podcast show notes as well, so that everybody can see it and that they are able to buy it. Alongside that, it's probably a good idea to tell people, where can they find you if they want any of your crafty goodies?
I'm quite a few places. So I have my own business and my own website, which is Cuddlebeds. If you look at Cuddlebeds, it will come up. I'm on Facebook and Pinterest, Twitter. I sell with Robert Dias. So back in, I want to say 2017, I won an award through Theo Papitas.
Oh, wow. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. On a Sunday, he's an incredible person. I've been following him for quite some time. And I got into Twitter again when I was poorly and researching. And he does something called Small Business Sunday. And he picks some winners every week, and he does an incredible amount of work to help support them. And you go down to the International Conference Centre in Birmingham, and he gives you your reward and he teaches you, and you can pitch to his buyers. So I went and asked him for a cheeky selfie, and that's gone everywhere. That selfie's gone everywhere. And I ended up selling in his shop. And he's such a great bloke. I love him. He's really cool. And where else? Chanda, there's a crafting channel called Chanda, so you can get my book and my products on there. I'm just setting up with Wayfair. Obviously Heartizan, a place called Shop Handmade, which is a new marketplace.
Mm-hmm. You're available in quite a few places. I tell you what we'll do, because the chances of people remembering all of these are slim to none. So if you send me across as many places as you can remember, then
Facebook. I'm on Facebook a lot. I hang out on Facebook a lot.
And the Craft to Be Kind group actually is a wonderful group. Now, before we get towards the final part of the podcast, and I will read a story at the very end of the podcast as well, quite possibly a poem that the two of us know fairly well.
That would be really apt, actually.
I think it would link quite well. But something that through all of the difficult times that you had, one thing that you mentioned was that you went over to New Zealand, and I've read a little bit, and we've spoken, I think, a little bit in the past about the fact that you travelled, and it's something that I've done a lot of too, and I absolutely loved. Do you have any fun or interesting or wild or crazy stories that came from your time when you were travelling?
Oh, I can't remember in my 20s.
It's a long time ago.
It's a long time ago, and I have a memory disorder, so I don't really know.
Maybe I shouldn't have asked that.
I can tell you, when I decided I needed to leave New Zealand and come back, my sister travelled all the way to Australia and I had a daughter then. Well, I only had one daughter then. I think she was about 8. And she met us outside the Sydney Opera House. That was a pretty cool time. I also met is it All Blacks? The rugby player in New Zealand. I also met all the All Blacks at a barbecue, which is quite a special time. Oh, that was awesome. That's all I can think of off the top of my head, really. In lockdown, a camper van, which I use for my business, because I don't just make cuddle beds now, I make bean bags, which happens to be my bestseller for some reason, and sensory items. So I use my van to pick up all the beans, but I'm planning on doing a big trip when I can around Europe. I want to go to Switzerland. I don't know why, I just have a pull, but I want to go to Switzerland in my camper van.
Beautiful place. It's a beautiful place. And so if your camper van has the engine power to make it up to the top of the mountains and you can see the views from the top, that would be wonderful.
That's on my vision board. I do have a vision board. It's a collaboration I did with somebody called Margot. This is through lockdown. We met together and we've made these amazing create your own vision boards. Yeah. So I've got a few things on there. One's my book, which you can take off. One's to travel. One's a new place to live. And the other one is to be on This Morning. I'm thinking, if this book can get out there, I could go on This Morning with the book.
So who's enticing you to This Morning? Is it Philip or is it Holly?
Well, it's a bit of a strange story. When Zach helps me with my business as well. That's my son. And he loves being on the radio. He's been on the TV and stuff. And he's actually said, Mum, I want to be on This Morning. I don't know why. I really don't know why. Perhaps I used to watch it a lot when he was younger. I don't know. It's neither of them, really. I just feel like that's something. I just feel called. I need to be on This Morning to share my story.
You know what? They enjoy personal stories such as yours. So I feel like maybe we'll have to see if we can get some PR, get Theo involved, and see.
Yeah.
I'm sure he knows the producers there. So.
I bet he does. Yeah.
We'll make it a mission. But I think that's a nice note to leave the podcast on. So we'll maybe get our listeners to all get together and see if they can find a way to get you in contact with the guys at This Morning.
That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. Get me and my boy on This Morning.
That'll be brilliant. That'll be brilliant. But what we'll do for now is I will say thank you so much for joining us on the Storytelling with Puck podcast. It's always an absolute pleasure speaking to you. And thank you for being so open and for sharing your story as well.
You're very welcome.
And on that note, we will end the podcast as we always do with a story from Puck Creations. Tired. So tired. Drained from head to toe. Reduced to seconds of fight before accepting defeat once again. Every ache a wave. Every tear a flood. Every second an hour. As I look to you, wanting you close but pushing you away, I smile an external smile. Your smile is tinted with the same sadness and fear that I feel. You save me from your tears, but I have enough of my own. Days pass. The pain fades and I can breathe again. I still cannot hold you in my arms, but I know I will again. My experience with COVID-19 came in its early days. We didn't know much about it, only that it had killed and would kill again. This mass murderer had knocked on my door, but my defences were up. Through nothing more than luck, I was able to fight. The luck of being born a few generations later than some. The luck of having no underlying health conditions. And the luck of having the economic security to be able to rest and recover over time. Many others have not had the same luck. Many others have passed into the next world without the opportunity to say goodbye to this one. Those people are not a number, and they are not just the old and vulnerable. They are people who have loved, who were loved, who are still loved now that they are gone. Don't let luck be the only reason that our loved ones survive. Stay safe. Keep them safe. And let them grow old enough to add more and more chapters to their stories. Maybe then we can all feel a little less tired and a little more full of the vigour we need to live, not just to survive. You've just been listening to the Storytelling with Puck podcast. We'll be back very soon, so make sure you subscribe and catch up on any of the episodes you've missed.